Hello.
Right. Give it a couple of minutes. We got a new meeting link, and Abby is going to stay in that to make sure people get over to this, which is going to be the old one. Uh, just for a couple more minutes.
We have a new meeting link which Abby is going to, or is this the new meeting link?
She's she's going to go to the meeting link to make sure people get over here because we are, in case people catch the link from somewhere else. That is the meeting link we're going to go to from after this meeting.
Okay. Will the I don't know, the community system send out an updated invite?
We will update all the places where the link is at, and when you sign up through that link, you will get updated every time there is an update.
Okay.
So I have that as a meeting agenda note thing.
Yeah, maybe get people, as I noticed there was an agenda, not an agenda, a meeting that came out about a deep dive that I was able, it sent me an invite for it, which is useful. Right.
mm,
Whereas I had gotten this meeting by copying it from Google Calendar, which
mm.
will leave you
Yeah,
in the dust.
yeah. So the new link will basically do stuff for you as long as you
Hey
don't
there.
have any interchange. Cool. Hey, Dominic.
I couldn't get into the meeting link. I tried it, by the way.
The new one.
Yeah, the new one. If the passcode, I think the passcode may be different. I tried 5 sevens and 6 sevens to get into that meeting, and neither worked. But it also is
Well,
possible it could be user error.
so the new link is not going to be a Zoom link in itself. It's going to be to the Linux Foundation's platform, and that will then redirect. So there might be something going on there, but if so, then I think Abby would have catched it by now. Speaking of Abby, we don't hear you, Abby. It won't hear you.
Still don't hear you.
Muted.
Looks like Abby's writing based on the motion. So all right, cool. Thanks, Abby. You just, I don't think anyone has have picked up that one, so you can just come to this meeting and get stuff going. There she is. Let me just paste the link to the agenda notes for anyone that aren't aware. Link, and I'm gonna set my machine to focus mode so I don't get stuff popping up all the time. All right, cool. Let's just kick off then. Welcome everyone to today's Platformers Working Group meeting. I'm going to be your host for today. We'll see how that works out. I'm currently in a hotel trying to write a presentation done, and then there's dinner soon. So a lot of stuff happening. So we'll see how that works for me. For those who are new, we usually do a little intros for people to kind of just say hello, and there is anyone that wants to kind of just do a short little introduction, then this is time for that.
I don't know if there are any new people. I'm new myself. I think apart from Abi, most people do not know me. I'm head of success, basically leading the operations of Team Topologists Limited, which is the company behind the book after the same name by Matthew and Manuel, who are owners. And it's been a long time coming for me to join this work group. I finally found time to do it.
Great, excellent. Good to have you here. And obviously, there's going to be a lot of things that you can bring back to the work that you're doing from this one, and hopefully you can bring some in as well, so we get more. There's a lot of things that we are doing that are based on team topology, so makes a lot of sense.
Well, hopefully I would not be only contributing from a Team Topologist perspective. Before that, I was actually running the Open Innovation Labs of Red Hat, so I'm quite intimate when it comes to topics around platforms and building platforms. Been doing this for the past 7 years in different industries and different contexts.
Awesome. Good to have you here. Anyone else?
Hi, my name is Andrew. I'm like 15 years experience in software engineering, and like I don't know, I may say like random guy or independent developer in this like work group. But my intention is to get expertise in the platform engineering, and I very like this approach, especially after reading the book of the team topologies. And I try to build like own product with like platform, like internal developer portal, and I would like to join, and maybe I will be useful for this group and like, get expertise, get my skills, and use my passion about software engineering to help this group. Like at this moment, I'm like just a listener for maybe few months to get the traction of this group, and then maybe I will provide some commitment that is like I hope it will be valuable for the group.
Excellent. Good to have you here.
Just don't feel like you have to wait to share your opinions and your ideas, is all I'd say. Feel free to, but don't feel like you have to.
All right. That's all wants to introduce themselves. Then we'll go through some of the housekeeping items that we have. We have, like I mentioned before Abby got in here, we got a new meeting link. So the idea is that LFX or openprofile.dev or whatever you want to call that platform from the Linux Foundation, they have a feature now where we can add these meetings, and it will you can sign up through the link that is in the agenda. Right now you probably will get bumped into the meeting, so don't do that. Wait until after the meeting. So you can sign up to these meetings, and then you will get a calendar invite, and it will keep everything up to date. Also, we'll do a lot of things that we hate to do, which is stuff like uploading the videos from these meetings and such. That kind of takes care of all of that for us. So, it's not only a great thing for people that are participating, but also for us that are hosting these meetings. There's less overhead of doing that. It's not completely self-service as of yet. So, we can't just like add new meetings and stuff like that. We have to go through the foundation's basically ticketing system to get stuff done. But I think that is a trade-off that we're willing to take for the just having the calendar invites doing stuff automatically and not having to do it ourselves and wrangle people, which is what we have been doing. Yeah, that's about it for that one. The only thing I can mention about the meeting, I think, is that basically all the working groups and the at a tag level, we're all starting to use that now. So it is like the common thing that everyone's been doing now. So good to have the platform working group on that as well. Abby, Canoe.
Yes. Just wanted to call out, I was catching up on Canoe meeting calls. I don't notice anyone who's on those calls here. But they are a group that works on kind of the technology of delivering platforms, slightly more so than we tend to talk more about the like organizational structure and things like that. So we're sort of two sides of a coin there a bit. So Andrew, for example, that might be a group you're also interested in joining. So it's a good thing to be aware of. Problem is that we were overlapping with them quite frequently because they have their calls at the same time also on Tuesdays. And so they have changed their calls. They are every other week. So I'm sure we're going to still overlap sometimes rather than we're twice a month. But far more frequently, we should be able to attend their calls if they would like, and vice versa. So if you're interested in the work that Canoe is doing, I've put a link within our docs here with to their website, I believe. Oh, to the calendar invite. I'll add a link to their website. Please do join, do get involved and see what they're up to. So that is all.
Excellent, thank you. And the last thing that we have on housekeeping at the moment of this is the tags nomination for new tech leads. So just like a background story about this, like I became a tech lead for the tag, and then kind of just like skipped over everything and jumped straight into being a chair, which is cool for me. But that also means that we only have one tech lead at the tag level. So we should probably have more than that. We only have one nomination so far, self-nomination from Dylan, who is going to be most likely one of the chairs of the infrastructure lifecycle working group. It's fine to be both the chair for a working group and the tech lead for the tag. It's all about like time commitments, but we currently only have Sarah as a tech lead, Sarah Christoph, in the tag, and we would like to have more. So we basically just have an open issue, and the idea here is to get people that have been active for a while to maybe nominate themselves or nominate other people. If you're not aware of what a tech lead does, basically it is there's two different roles at the tag level, and basically two different, same as in the work groups. There's the chairs who kind of lead a group. That is those are the people with responsibilities, the ones that can't get away from all the obligations. And then there's tech leads who, the idea is to help represent the tag, in this case, support the chairs if there's just too much stuff to do, help drive some of the parts of the tag, preferably something that is, somewhere within the expertise of the tech leads. So for instance, if anyone here from platforms would join, it would make a lot of sense to be tightly coupled with the platforms working group and help, having smooth collaboration between on the tag level and work group level. And in general, just be more available. It's kind of like a chair role, except it doesn't have all the responsibilities, and it's more on the can-do basis, not on the you have to be there and host stuff. I don't know. Do anyone, Abby or Colin, do you have anything to say about the tech lead nomination, or good enough?
I think it's just a great thing. This is just like any other open source. If you have the ability to give back to the groups, please do. There's opportunities, and it gives you some insights into how the CNCF works. So you end up in conversations with lots of people around the CNCF, and it's a great community of people to network with and engage with. So time commitment wise, I'm not sure if I didn't hear you share, Robert. It's probably like a at most a couple hours a week, probably more so like a couple hours every 2 weeks is sort of the general rule of thumb. So just for you to decide if that's something you can manage.
And it's basically that kind of also fluctuates a little bit. So if the tag gets a lot of project reviews and such, there might be times where people have to step up a little bit more to get it, everything done within certain deadlines and stuff like that. Other times there's not a whole lot of stuff to do, and sometimes we're planning for KubeCon. So it's basically time commitment wise, kind of hard to say one specific thing, but I would say a couple hours every week is kind of like the average, depending. And of course, anyone who's willing to share more of their time, that's also really cool. All right, that's the housekeeping things that we had. We only have one ongoing work issue that I could find. I don't know if anyone else have anything, but we nominated Atul for being the new co-chair for the platforms working group. So again, if people aren't aware, I've been a chair for this working group since it started. I helped start this group, and basically, it's too much work to both be a chair of this working group, which is very active, and being the chair of the tag itself. So and I've been on for so long that it's about time that someone else came in and got the chance to do something. So we all we're very happy about Tool being willing to take that role. I don't know, Colin, the nomination that you put out, I think that is a success, I would say. And now it's just to create the TOC voting issue. Yep. So on that, do you want to create that issue? Is that cool? So as soon as the TOC has voted, there's a little bit delay on the TOC voting in general. I think it's because we're just our group alone, our tag alone has put out a lot of voting issues. I feel a little bit sorry for that, but that's how it is. So yeah, as soon as you get that up and that vote goes through, Atul can kind of get in and start taking on some of these roles, and I can quietly slip out into the night or something. I don't know. That's not what I do. I'm
Not quietly,
Okay.
you've been a huge part. You set up this working group. So just to be clear on like the level of thanks we all have for all that you've put in, and as a tag lead, you will be bothered plenty by all the work that we have and questions we have. So genuinely, this is something that we've been wanting to do. Robert and I have been talking about this since before I rotated in, about like what rotations look like. And so this is why we talk about the tech lead role as well, as a way for you to get to know the leadership role within the groups and potentially want to become a lead chair at some point. I've now the longest standing member once Robert rolls off, and I'll be another year or so before I should be looking at rolling off. So there's lots of opportunities, and then life happens. Sometimes that moves faster or slower for different people accordingly. So yeah, very big thank you to everything you've done, Robert, and looking forward to bringing in Atul for new ideas and things, but very excited that you're still going to be with us at the tag level. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, deep dive call for assessment work. Who added that?
Yep, that's me as well. So we are one of the pieces of work that we're doing as a working group is building off of the platform engineering maturity model. So for the really quick recap, we put out the white paper. That was really nice for a lot of people to understand what we were talking about, but then they didn't know how to apply that to their context. We put out the maturity model as a way to help people understand, sure, the white paper lays out ideals. What does that look like in real life, and what are the different levels you might find yourself at? We're still finding that the maturity model people are struggling to apply, or they're finding investing heavily to apply it to their own context. And we had a proposal by Corbin from AWS to turn that into something that's a bit more self-service through an assessment model. And we are working through that. So we have a call next Tuesday in the same slot that we have these calls normally. It will be on the current Zoom link, and you can go to the invite there that I've shared in our doc. And the focus of that call is going to be on what questions do we want to ask to help people identify where they sit on the maturity model. We will grow from there as a group. We won't be publishing that as is. We will be growing from there to figure out how to assess where people should be on the model. So they are, where are you? Where should you be? And then there's the conversation of how do we provide insights and, quick starts for people that find a gap between where they should be and where they are. So that's sort of the high level motion of the project. And the tactical call for next week is around the questions we want to ask to place where people are currently on the model without them having to read all 12 pages, because everyone wants a TLDR. Any questions on that?
Is there a way to contribute asynchronously? Because I happen to be blocked at the same time next week.
Absolutely. So we'll never finalize things without giving time for review on a synchronous call, because we are an asynchronous group by default. I think there's a perception there's a lot going on here, and a discussion would be helpful to get us all moving in the same direction and in a forward direction. But I suspect we will have a document which we'll be working on with comments and things either before it, because I know Corbin and Colin have been working on something, but that may not be something that can be wholesale shared, or after it as something that we've created as a group that we want to take forward. But I suspect there'll be at least another week or two of review, no matter what happens in that call, just because it's a pretty big topic. So
I suppose it will be shared on the Slack channel.
Yep, it'll be shared on the Slack channel, and we'll also share a video of that call on YouTube. So it's not quite the same thing as being able to be there and share your opinion, but you can at least hear the conversation if you're not able to attend. So yeah.
Yeah, just to provide a little extra color as well, Corbin's been trying to get legal approval to share what he's done to this point, and that's really been the blocker on the ability to share some of the content he was working on at the time. We actually trialed this with some of our AWS customers to try to get around that as well, and work through some of the question content. And so we've done a little bit of pre-work to kind of help us get ready to steer some of that conversation or participate in that conversation.
All right.
I think I'm happy to, yeah, I think I'm happy to help with that, Colin. That's why I was asking the question before about, where are the questions? Can we see those? So if that's next week, brilliant, right? Because I'm interested in going through them and seeing how they would even apply to our org, try and give some feedback, just to actually try and practically use it. Will we get that next week, or is next week just a discussion? I mean, are we still stuck at Corbin being able to release those questions?
We're going to move forward next week regardless. I've talked with Corbin about this. If he can't get it released, we're going to create our own. So
okay.
At some level, obviously he'll be bringing his experiences, as will Colin, having worked with that framework. Happy for them to share what they're able to legally, but I suspect we'll be able to come up with the things that we need to as well internally if we need to. I hear you. It's a pretty concrete thing. It's coming from the paper, so I suspect we'll be able to do that. So
okay, cool.
The interesting things that going through it and kind of play testing it and seeing that I found is that some of the questions seem more relevant for larger organizations. Some of the questions may seem more relevant for smaller organizations. And then there's also a question of organizations at lower maturity not really knowing how to answer a question and some things like that. So it's been interesting to go through that. It hasn't necessarily been do we attack the validity of one question to cover all use cases, or maybe we create a few additional questions. It's been really interesting going through that. If that's worth anything, I look forward to talking about it more Tuesday for sure, though.
Cool. No more questions about that? All right. Then we have the platform as a product research. Who wants to take on the...
Hey everyone. We have a decent amount of folks who've put up their hand to be interviewers now. I think we have about 18. We're working through the signups of folks who said they wanted to be interviews. We're starting to schedule those. Still waiting on responses from most. And the big thing is, can we increase our numbers by having folks go to their own networks? With the script and the guideline, pulling somebody from the interviewer group as a second or picking somebody else, and essentially reaching out within their own networks to get our numbers up for responses. That's kind of the big ask from our end. It was the intent all along, and now it's, how do we get that message out and get folks to opt in?
The leads are always asking us where we could use help. This is it. Getting that interview tracker kind of followed through so that we can get interviews going and we can have some results for Salt Lake City would be a huge help. Abby, you're muted.
Double mute,
there you
always
go.
triple mute. So that is not on my backlog. Colin or Robert, are either of you on that?
It's a little unclear to me. So what's the specific ask there? One of the asks was like to help publicize and get the reviews, or like reach out to the companies. Is that the specific?
Yeah, I mean, getting that, so we have that diagram of the outreach process and tracking, getting interviews and interviewers moving, and that's what we need help with. And I have not pulled in any new candidates, but basically, I've run through the process with a few people. I got responses from one or two people, asked for people in India time zone, asked for people in Europe, and it's moving but slowly. And I don't necessarily have time to try and take on all of those contacts and spawn off, interviews for all of them.
Yeah, the big thing is to remove, like a handful of people who are kind of leading this initiative from being the bottleneck for this. And I guess incentivizing or opening up the ask for the community to like go to your own network. There's a decent amount of platform builders in all our networks, platform leaders, and reaching out to them independently. Like the research guide is there, the interview is there. The missing piece is, can you reach out to your network, book a few calls, go through a few cycles of interviewing? And even if folks can't do it themselves, but they can be the facilitator for it, then they can pull people from the research group to pair on those interviews.
Do we need to set up a specific call with the people that have raised their hand to be interviewers and just have a specific conversation about that?
I think that's a pretty good idea.
Be a lead or something like that. Like, do we need to ask that?
Well,
Yeah, I think oh, go ahead.
we need to we need to figure out who is an interviewer and who is a coordinator, right? Because I kind of put it out there and said, all right, let's have something emergent happen, and it hasn't happened. So I think we have a lot of people who have volunteered to be interviewers, but I think they're expecting to be sort of placed into an interview and not necessarily try and run the process from end to end. So we need some people to do coordination of getting the interviews going, and then, don't have to participate in the actual interviews. And then we need people to actually be available to do the interviews. and follow through on that end of it.
How
Yeah.
many companies? How many companies have you got for actually taking part in the interviews, David? Is there a number yet?
Sorry, well, you're a little fuzzy.
Sorry, it'll be there.
You're asking how many companies have we interviewed or how many have signed up or
How many have signed up? Yeah.
we have I was just looking at the signups. We have over 50 signups. We have about 3 new ones since the last time I refreshed the list.
Okay, thanks.
If you need people to do some coordination, you could always ask the people who signed up to be the interviewers if they could,
I
participate in
did that
doing
already.
Okay.
I made a document, a diagram. We've been asking that. So
Okay.
I think, like I said, I think there's 2 distinct groups in the interviewers. People who can coordinate and are able to follow through, and then people who are just ready to participate in interviews.
All the people who signed up, have they gotten into the Slack channel and everything there? Or
I
do we
think
need to
so.
follow up with everybody who signed up to be an interviewer and get them into the Slack channels and do some logistics there? Just curious, just don't know how far the logistics have gone for the people who signed up.
I'm not opposed to doing a more specific kickoff type activity and having a video, even if people can't attend, having a video up and kind of reinvigorating this since, this has been dragging out for quite a while in terms of like us being able to allow people to just do it for themselves. So, and after the summer, right, there's a lot of big gap in activity in the summer. So maybe, we could have a session where we, dedicate it to this interviewer group, get people stoked again about getting this done.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking when I was talking about having like an interviewer call, walking through that. Does anyone want to raise their hand as a coordinator? What are some of the logistics there? How do we reach out with legitimacy? All that stuff. But like, so how when we have the list of people who applied, has there been any follow-up to that list of the interviewers to say, okay, next steps, join the group or do anything there? Or has it just been, we've got this list now and now we need to do something with it? Where's that
Well,
in the...
Michael, I think they should, anyone who signed up should be in the private
everyone
Slack channel and
who
ready to
signed up
go.
to be an interviewer is in there. Anybody who wants to only coordinate can be in. I'm going to add Chris now, so we'll add those people as well. I think one thing I'll do is after this call, I'll message out with the 3 buckets. Like if you just want to facilitate, if you just want to interview, or if you want to do it end to end. I guess one concrete ask is we've been kind of peripherally talking about the end user group. Can we craft like a very specific message to them for them to facilitate, like if they opt in, they're responsible for, internally getting some folks who want to be interviewed within their companies.
I don't.
Right.
I think the end user, you can basically just their Slack section is open for anyone to join, and you should be able to just basically have that ask there. There's also there's the channel is called Tab, which is the technical advisory board, the end user technical advisory board. So it's through there you could get more in touch with the end user groups.
Got it.
Depends which org the users are in. A lot of finance companies won't give access to Slack. Like my org blocks it from the network. So we can't see any of the working group stuff. I've got to use external devices for that. And I know that's quite common in our area and industry.
Yes, but the Tab channel is for the group, the end user, the technical advisory group in the CNCF for end users. So, whoever is present there will be able to, facilitate things throughout the end user group. So it's basically just it's the right set of people to ask if you want to do something with the end user group in general.
for example, they do like calls that they might invite you on to share the context with and things like that. So one thing that I would say, so it sounds like we have some rejuvenation of excitement. We have some organizational asks that I think will get sorted. One thing that from the outside, because I'm not as involved in this project, I think I don't know if I, from the outside, see the incentive to get involved right now, if I'm honest, just being completely frank about the like participating in the interviews, because I haven't seen the outputs from those interviews or understand where those outputs will go. So I think creating some sort of a feedback loop of like interviews happen and this is what we're like learning together from them with will hopefully also generate a bit of a flywheel there of like, oh, I'm seeing that people are able to like are having these learnings and I disagree with those. I know other people who are doing other things, or I think that's really cool and I want to get involved. I think we'll start a bit of a flywheel. So again, I realize I'm a bit of a broken drum on this, a bit on asking for how do we get the
More
outputs from these
content,
things as
more
much as
content.
possible. And I can first of all totally appreciate that we have a lot more work to do to get them formalized into the type of document that I know you all envision in the future. So I'm not suggesting this is final stuff, but what are the tidbits we can get out of there to start that flywheel going, to start those conversations, to get ourselves to the point where we have the energy around the larger document that we're going to put out in the future. So
I think well, Michael, have we had any more than 2 interviews?
I mean, I've had 2 mock interviews and then one real one and then one scheduled for this week. So it's been, you know, we're just like getting back into
Getting
it
the
now.
tidbits, we're in a sort of what is it called, a race condition or catch 22 with what you're talking about, Abby. So maybe if the group here could figure out specific interviews we could get done, that would be the biggest help. And, the people who are leading this, we can coordinate and follow through. And that's how we get to the tidbits. And maybe it's just maybe it's members like Chris, right? Or having someone from Chris's org. That'd be
Yeah.
one of the biggest helps, Chris, if you could get us the interviews, right?
So I'll just push back a little bit on that. Again, I'm on the outside of this project, but I think we got signups. Like we have a list of at least tens of people, right?
50,
Like
55.
55, right? And so I totally appreciate that, like that we need to scale this up and get more people to interview, as in like more humans for that list of 50 people, like get to 100 people and 1,000 people we can interview.
Mhm.
But it sounds to me like the bottleneck isn't that. It's the bottleneck is getting the interviews themselves done. And that is something that I think we can control. And I'd also push back like slightly on needing more than 2 interviews to do tidbits. Like lessons learned from an interviewer could be a blog post, like one thing out of one interview that you learned. Like again, it doesn't have to be trends early on. We want to get to trends, but we have to like start that flywheel of learnings to like bring people in. Like this is all volunteer community work. If people don't see the sort of feedback loops, I think people will think they're just spending their time into a black hole, which it's not a black hole. There's a huge amount of opportunity there in the long run, but we have to get people to realize that, right? And in these early days. So
Yeah, consistent flow of
Oh,
content.
Dominic was trying to get a word in here.
Where's Dominic?
Yeah. I mean, maybe it's already giving that what you said or what you want to say, Michael, because I think the biggest bottleneck currently is just the organizational, right? We need to connect the people that want to do interviews with the people that want to be interviewed. And that's the organizational bit that David and Michael already said, where people like Chris can definitely help us connecting people for the interviews, and then we have content that we can work with. And because of the vacation mode and all that, I think that was just going a bit too slow. So I think a very good next step for us would be to get the list of people that want to coordinate this operational effort of connecting people with people, and setting up meetings that interviews are actually really happening, because that's, I think, the biggest issue right now. and we can just, whoever wants to coordinate, assign organizations interviewees to them, and then they take over for the organization of interviews actually happen, and then we can use that content.
Yeah, so which David, when I was asking about before the channel, which channel are they? So words today. Are all the potential interviewers in is it the platform as product channel, or is it in the working group platforms channel? Is it the PAP research group, or is it the other one?
It's the PAP research group, the private channel.
Okay. So if I put together a call for the interviewers to do a deeper dive,
That'd be great.
get that coordinated, is that helpful?
Yeah, that'd be
And then
great.
I can curate and run that and kind of
Yeah.
crack the whip.
Yeah.
Yeah,
no,
and then we can just assign, hey, you do that interview, you do that interview, and then people, know straightforward who to contact. And I think that takes away a bit of the, I don't know,
Yeah.
barrier of entry, right?
All I'd
Yeah.
say is let's figure out a dangle the carrot rather than crack the whip, since it's all volunteers.
Yes,
Risk
yes.
versus opportunity. That sounds good. Yeah, I'll take that on as an action item to get that meeting set up, and we'll we can treat it like the deeper dives, like we're doing for the other, and hopefully that just gives it a more formal feel, kind of a tie back to the leadership and whatnot. But yeah, I'm all for that. I could proceed too. So just making sure people have gone through and seen the mock interviews, understand the approach, understand that you shouldn't do leading questions. Also, this is not a chance to have a sales call and all the normal things there. Ask for people to raise a hand to be coordinators and have some accountability over that. And then also just get an idea of, well, you signed up for this thing, who's going to show up and is serious on the deeper dive call as well.
Yeah, that'd be great to know.
Well, that sounds good. For David, Michael, Dom, for you guys in particular, is there a certain day of the week that's better for a meeting like that?
Monday, Tuesday is the most flexible for me, and Friday. Wednesdays and Thursdays are a little crowded.
And Monday, Tuesday's good.
Dominic, Fridays are out for you, right?
No, Fridays are fine. I mean, next week, Tuesday, Wednesday, I'm on a conference, but besides that, can do.
Yeah, I see. Olimar is saying about shadowing. I think that is a good idea in general. One of the things I was about to suggest is that people could be signing up to be the interviewer, but don't necessarily know how that works in itself, and that gets intimidating, just like jumping off the. So having some sort of meeting where you go through those kind of things, that takes the edge off. It's one of those cases where people can sign up, but they probably won't be doing anything until they get assigned something and be a little bit more comfortable with.
Also, I mean, showing the script and showing the help guide. We have a lot of good content around that. Just seeing that, I think, is something different than seeing a link in the meeting notes.
Well, and the QA around that, I'm sure people will have. The guide still has gaps in it in terms of the difference between like what people read on the face of it and how it works in practice. So it'll be good to actually run through the reality of how these things play out. We qualified, baseline qualification in the interviewer sign up in terms of like, have you done this before? But it's very light qualification to people who are like, I have a research background, to people who are like, I'm just interested and can help. Yeah. But the idea is that, we can funnel people through. Either they can start, the idea is that the people who have the least experience would kind of join as a co-interviewer. And are more responsible for kind of like the logistics and the flow of the interview, and keeping the primary interview kind of on track and within time.
Yeah, I like the kind of the co-interviewer approach is great. It also helps reduce conflict of interest and things as well.
Yeah, nobody can get too salesy when there's somebody else from another org there.
Exactly. Yeah, a little better for accountability. Cool. I like that.
Of time. Have you answered all the questions that we want to get answered, and do we know what we're supposed to be doing? Yes. I think that was good. All right, then we're at the discussions part of this, and then we have Tyler.
Hey everybody, nice to see you all. Yeah, so my name is Tyler Pate. I'm a principal software engineer at Red Hat. I work on the delivery of cloud services. If you haven't seen me or been around me before, I just did a PIM leveling workshop. I'm using PIM as the abbreviation for Platform Engineering Maturity Model. I've said it way too many times at this point, so I'll be using PIM throughout today. But we recently brought 3 platform teams together at Red Hat, and so I'd like to just give a little case study and report on what we did. So the context, we had 3 separate teams come together under a new director. As a disciple of the PIM, I wanted to explore how we could use it to come together, which is kind of similar to some of the assessment work that's happening. So the day after the org change, I presented to those 3 groups together. I introduced the PIM, and then a working group was born inside of Red Hat. And so the first major meeting that happened as part of that working group was a platform engineering maturity model leveling workshop. And so 2 major objectives. I wanted to secure decision maker buy-in for platform as a product and the platform engineering maturity model. And then I also wanted to drive a common vocabulary across those 3 teams. And important to this is that we had 3 separate teams who had different customer profiles and different problem sets, but they all came together under one platform engineering group. And so I thought it was a great opportunity to position the PIM as a way to bring everyone together and to establish a common language. So how the workshop structure worked, we had managers and presenters from each team. They were called on to describe their team's rankings and characteristics that informed their decisions. There's a little bit of pre-work that went into the workshop. And so for each team, they had to go through the maturity model and then do a self-assessment on where they ranked for each level. And then, and I have a link to the template in the walkthrough. I'll share it in just a moment here. Actually, let's go ahead and share right now. Let's see. There we go. I'll also paste this link inside of the chat, or inside of the working group as well. Here we go. Excellent. So yeah, so we did a leveling workshop. The goal is to get all the teams to have an opportunity to speak and review their self-assessment of the category levels. So, you know, we all understand the PIM, but I wanted to get engineers and also leaders in these groups to start thinking in terms of the PIM and talking about it from that perspective. And then, you know, so I wanted to create common vocabulary, and I wanted to have the teams drive introspection about what problems they were solving. And so we had each group and their leaders enter their levels, and then we worked through the workshop over 1 hour. So one of the major changes that we made, or like one thing that I thought was important for this workshop to be working well, is that instead of using the text titles for the levels, we used numbers. So level 1, 2, and 3, and 4. For managerial and other audiences, like those levels sort of naturally carried more weight and more meaning than the words themselves. I think that was one thing that really helped discussion. And so the pre-work was for each team, they would go through, list their category, and then the characteristics that, you know, supported that category, and then the scenario. And as a meeting facilitator, I worked through, and I'll go ahead and stop sharing. There's not a lot more content in this document. But as the meeting facilitator, I went through and I made sure that every single team had an opportunity to explain their ranking, the reasoning for their ranking, and then gave an opportunity for the other people in that meeting to ask questions about, you know, why they came up with that and if the group agreed. And so, you know, each team was independently creating those rankings, and it was less about making sure those were 100% correct. And it was more about driving engagement and, you know, getting people to buy into the PIM. So even if, you know, someone in the room didn't really agree with one of the rankings, that wasn't really the true goal. The goal was us to start talking and all moving in the same direction. And so, yeah, the outcomes for the workshop, there was a lot of really great engagement. All of these teams, one manager and one engineering lead from each was doing this presentation or working through this workshop. And surprisingly, those engineering leads were able to get some of the, individual contributor engineers to buy into and like read the PIM and start thinking about it and talking about it. And I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of engineers that I know that are allergic to, project management or PM type of stuff. And yet we were able to drive a lot of engagement and excitement around the PIM. And I thought that was really, really shocking and very exciting. So at the end of the day, we had a ton of engagement. We had the session lasted an entire hour. We used the entire time to discuss all these characteristics. And I think both of the goals that, I set out to achieve were established. And so the follow-on to this work is we're going to be doing a user personas workshop in the same style. And so we'll be, for each team, identifying their core persona and then also identifying alternative personas. And then we'll be working through who are we serving, why are we serving them. I don't have any direct control or sort of leadership or executive, authority over these groups. And so I'm working on getting people to find like, oh, well, these are obvious overlaps between our groups, and maybe we can slim these down or, right size the personas or right size the approach. But overall, I thought it was extremely effective. I was very surprised at the results, tons of engagement. After the meeting, we had a lot of people in Slack describing how they really enjoyed the session, and it was very positive. And in the context of bringing 3 separate groups together, I thought it was extremely effective. So yeah, we'll be doing the personas workshop next, and I'll make sure to sort of let everybody know how that worked and how that went. That's all for my content. I'll take any questions or thoughts here. I think David, your hand's up first.
This sounds really awesome, and I can see it being useful in a lot of places. I made a copy of the doc, so I can mark it up too. I'm curious about like some of the outcomes that you envision over time. You mentioned some of the like principles you'd like to get out there, but what, doing a personas workshop is, I think, initially that said, well, that's like maybe cart before the horse. And in fact, it's, I think, the looking at the right thing to do to understand who the customer is and the fact that there is a customer, which a lot of these teams at Red Hat might understand that, but I could see other groups really not getting that. Like, do you have a customer? And just getting them to think about that first, and then thinking about product thinking and stuff like that after the fact, once they understand who their customers are. But do you have like further, like, would there be an offering or catalog or product type workshop after that?
So, I mean, it sounds like a good idea to me. I needed to introduce the PIM to introduce the idea of platform as a product, because even though Red Hat is very cutting edge, these groups inside are more traditional. And, we're focused on the management and delivery of cloud services that back OpenShift. And so even though we have customer facing elements inside of Red Hat that are progressive in terms of where platforms are, we didn't, none of our teams really ranked super high on the maturity model here. And, when you start going from investment level 2 to 3 is when you really start thinking about platform as a product thinking. And, this is all brand new concepts for the groups. So establishing the PIM first, then introducing the idea of we're serving a customer instead of just providing a service internally. And then eventually we get, moving that direction. But I definitely agree, David. I think those are very valid points.
If you're interested, I'd love to talk about like this workshop and your upcoming one.
That sounds great. I'd love to. Let's follow up. I know we have 5 minutes left, so I want to make sure we get time for everyone. Abby, you have a follow up?
Yeah, this is awesome. So first of all, thank you for sharing. I'm always asking people to come back and share if they've done things like this. So that's awesome, and definitely want to hear about the persona one. This feels not too dissimilar to what we're talking about in the assessment work we're doing. So I guess a question for you would be like, do you think that this work is generalizable in a way that you would like, given a set of instructions and given a set of questions, people would be able to have this experience without a skilled facilitator in the room? Or are we a bit chasing our tails here? Like, what do you think on sort of bringing this to a new working group output?
I think it's very situational, right? Like this really worked because we had 3 different groups who weren't really exposed to the PIM before and had completely separate charters coming together, right? And so this was all about kind of getting everyone together. But like in the cases where we're just doing assessments for teams or working through the assessments, like I don't know, it's hard for me to make a generalized statement right now. This is a single point in time. This is a case study. This is an example of what worked or has been working for us. But like I think all this stuff is complementary, right? And I think that like using the output of the assessment group could feed into some of these types of workshops, and there are probably multiple ways you could operate one of these workshops. So I don't want to make a conclusive statement about, one approach being better than the other, nothing like that, right? This is just a data point, and I'm happy to share because it seemed to work well for us. But I think it's just we're snowballing here, right? We're
Totally.
snowballing in this direction, finding the right.
Don't stress out too much. I do hope you come to the assessment stuff if you're able to, because it's just getting that feedback in. The only other thing I was gonna say is we had a little bit of a hope and a dream that people might share some of their scenarios back to the maturity model. So we have a couple scenarios for each of the like kind of places of the maturity model, so people can kind of see themselves in those examples. But those are derived only from the humans that were reviewing that model. So 50 people reviewed that model, but not all 50 people participate in all those scenarios, etc. So if you find that any of those scenarios would be things, I'd love to hear, and we can take this offline later, whether or not any of those you think could get pushed back to the model, and whether or not that's even a viable option for people to try and get that sort of, again, talking about flywheels, that flywheel of getting people contributing those things and getting more people wanting to contribute. Hey, this is what I look like at level 2 or at level 3 or level 4 or whatever. But we'll take that
I'm
offline.
with you. Let's connect off. Let's connect off the call. We can discuss that further. I think all those things are definitely possible. I don't really have a concept in my mind of what that looks like, but I think there are possibilities here for sure. Okay, Robert. Sorry, Chris, go ahead.
Yeah, I put something in the chat window about it. This is a question that came up today, actually, in some discussions we were having about the different team types and what is the general approach out there, right? Do we have any metrics on the different team types and different orgs doing platform as a product? Is it, lots of consumers? Is it a lot of platform teams? It'd actually be really good if we could get some questions and, some general type questions in the survey. That's a way to go out to actually capture some of those numbers and those teams, because people do want that information right now. I mean, I have 2 conversations today about it, so really interesting what you've just done.
Yeah, so I mean, like I definitely generalize this document to be, not identifying of teams or levels or any specific information inside of Red Hat. The goal was to present the concepts and the workflow, but not necessarily the specific details, which I don't know. I want to be careful about sharing. I think there are opportunities to do what you're talking about, Chris. I think we would need to think about, company and data privacy, and it's a lot for me to put in my mouth right now, but I think there are opportunities there. I don't have a direct answer for you right now.
Yeah, I think that's why the survey stuff is supposed to be anonymous, right? So if we are able to get that and put it out in an anonymous fashion, right, that's when it adds real value. I mean, I can relate to the Red Hat, your internal stuff, right, with some of the companies I've worked for in the past and the different teams in there and their maturity models. You don't really want that getting out in industry, right? But if we can somehow tease that out through some of the interviews and it's all anonymous, I think there's use of that data. I think there's actually some real beneficial use for all the orgs.
I'm with you. I agree. I definitely, 100%. Definitely agree, Chris. Okay, Robert.
Thanks.
Yeah. So one thing that I was expecting Abby to talk about is, blog post opportunities here. We'd like to get more activity on the blog, especially from things like this. Would it be possible for you to maybe write, it doesn't have to be long, but kind of just like a blog post about, what your experiences was doing this and so on and so forth?
Absolutely. I would love to. Yeah, 100%. No, I've definitely been looking for an opportunity for my first blog post here. I think this one is a perfect opportunity. I just did this session last week on Monday, so I'm not necessarily racing, but trying to get all this content up as fast as possible, creating the template and generalizing it for us. So yes, I definitely will be. I'll open a PR soon and get this content up. But yeah, I definitely want to write a blog post here. I also have another blog in the back of my head about thin views into platforms, which I'd love to share. But let's focus here on the leveling workshop and the case study, and then we can expand from there. But yeah, I definitely want to be contributing on the blog side for sure.
It's these are the things that are interesting to have as blog posts, not just like generic administrative things and stuff. Like having someone that actually took a piece of work that we did and did something with it. That would be really cool to have. All right. So there you go.
Okay, that's all for me. Thank you so much, everybody. Appreciate the time. Thank you.
Thank you, Tyler. We're basically on time, aren't we? Oh, we're over time. Oh, of course. So we'll end it there. Thanks everyone for showing up, and thanks for all the good discussion and productive meeting. Good job, everyone.
Come next week for the
All right.
deep dive. Bye.
Yeah.
Next week, deep dive. Right.
See
Yes,
you.
sir.
Bye all.